Hi there, it's Tracy Kiernan from Step by Step Painting, and this acrylic painting tutorial is going to show you how to paint this super cute duckling with acrylics on an 11 by 14 inch canvas. So we have a spring theme design. And so let's go over brushes and colors. We will be using this 3/4 inch flat wash brush, this number 4 round brush for most of the majority of the painting. There will be occasionally times we'll be using this number 8 round brush. So this is like this long pointed bristle round brush, and that one is super helpful for painting some of the leaves, especially in the tulips and the grass. Let's go over colors. So we have titanium white, Mars black, primary red, burnt sienna, cadmium yellow medium hue, cerulean blue, light green permanent, and dioxazine purple. These are the Liquitex basics colors. And if you have a piece of white chalk, that's going to be helpful for drawing our duckling. And we are going to go ahead and get started. So I'm using an 11 by 14 inch canvas, and I'm going to start by loading my flat brush in the water. And let's start with the blue. So we're going to do a very simple background of a blue gradient that kind of blends to a very, very light blue color at the bottom. So let's start at the top, and I'm going to do curved strokes. So I'm painting this so that my paint goes in an arc direction, and I'm going to do that for the majority of this background. So as I go to reload more blue, I'm going to go down maybe 2 or 3 inches with this blue, and then I'm going to start blending titanium white into it. So you might find that you want to kind of use a little bit of water on your brush to help get it to spread. And then when you're ready, go ahead and load your brush in the titanium white without rinsing it. So I just grabbed a big chunk of that white, start below your blue, and blend that up into the blue. Continue painting in that arc direction and just gently blend that up, but try not to overblend your color. So as I work my way down, I'm just going to keep going with this kind of blue and white combination. A little bit of water helps to get that paint to spread a little bit better. Keep going in an arc direction, and we want to kind of get this to be lighter and lighter, although we have a lot of canvas to go. That's why I added a little bit of blue right there. So we have kind of a streak of light color up there, and then we have kind of a lighter blue, but that's okay. It doesn't have to be a perfect gradient of dark to light. So let's grab some more white and continue working our way down in that curved direction. So it's a relatively thin layer of paint, kind of watering it down slightly with that water. If you're working with craft paints, you likely don't need to be using that water to thin it, because craft paints are already sort of loose and thin, and you don't really need to add water to them. But these student grade acrylics tend to be a little bit thicker, and sometimes it's helpful when you want to do kind of a thin layer of paint to just add a little bit of water in there, but not too much. Your paint should not be dripping, especially if you're working on an easel. Nothing should be dripping down. So more white. I'm going to keep going down, pretty much just loading my brush in the white at this point. And you can see it's not a perfect blend. There's some streaks in there, and that's okay. I always find that it gives our background color a little bit more interest when it's not blended all the way, or when it's not blended perfectly. Makes it look more like a painting. So I'm going to get some more titanium white on my palette, and for the rest of the way I'm just going to be using this white, using this brush to continue. A little bit of water on that brush. And we will be introducing just a little bit of green at the bottom, but for now, let's just go all the way down, or almost all the way down, with this white. So pretty much the blue has disappeared to almost a pure white at the bottom, and let's load light green permanent on our palette without rinsing your brush. Unless you have your brush totally overloaded, then you can kind of wipe the brush off. But load just a little bit of that green on your brush, and at the bottom, let's just paint a very kind of thin, light green layer. This is going to help later when we paint the grass in this painting, which is at the bottom of the duckling area, and just kind of gently blend it up. You can bring that green up a little bit, but not too far. So we just have a little hint of green at the very bottom of our painting. So this is what our background looks like, and you will need to let this dry before going on to this next step. We will be drying the duckling with a piece of chalk. So I am going to start out by drawing a circle for the head, and the top of this circle is going to be about 11 inches from the bottom of the canvas. So if you want to measure that, you can, or you can just estimate, but we're just going to take our chalk and draw a circle. So again, the top of that circle is about 11 inches from the bottom of the canvas. It's about a 3.5 inch diameter, so we're going to be very sketch-like with our chalk. So about halfway down this circle, I'm going to curve my line outwards for the beak, and it's going to kind of slope down a little bit, and it's going to have a curved end to it, and then the bottom part is going to curve up from that circle. So this part curves up. Then we're going to do the inside part of the beak. So I'm going to do a curved line in and like this webbed line down. So let me replay that for you. So this part's curving in and then little webbed line down to attach to the beak. So we're going to curve this line down for the neck. So it's going to go in and then it's going to curve back out, and it's going to get, so this is his body, it's going to get as wide as how wide the beak is. So it's going to go out towards the right and kind of line up to the end of the beak, and then go down and then just kind of disappear in the green area. So we're going to do the same thing on this side. We're going to curve inwards for the neck and then curve outwards. And this line just kind of goes down and disappears down into the green area. And then we can erase any of these internal lines or just leave them alone, and then they'll disappear when we paint the duck. And let's do the eye. So the top of the eye actually lines up with the top end point of the beak. So here's the bottom part of the eye. It kind of lines up to that bottom part of the beak, and the top part of the eye kind of lines up to the top part of the beak. And it's kind of like a sideways sort of teardrop shape. And I'm just going to kind of adjust the top of the head. Make it a little bit higher at the top, and then go down. And we can adjust our drawing as we're painting this in. So here's my basic duck drawing, and for this next step, I am going to outline my drawing, and I'll be using a number 4 round brush. You could actually just skip the chalk drawing and go straight to painting the drawing, but I like to draw with chalk first just to kind of get my first sort of composition of what I like it to look like, and then I'll go and start painting. But right here, I'm actually going to outline my drawing with Cadmium Yellow Medium and a number 4 round brush. And so I am going to define my duck now. So the drawing was very sketch-like. Now I'm going to do very defined sort of lines, but still kind of loose. Not sketchy lines, but still kind of loose. And I'm just going to go over my entire drawing with this. So relatively thin line, so I'm not pressing super hard. It's like I'm drawing right now with my paintbrush. Beak, and curve upwards, and then curve this way and then curve down just a little bit at the top. See this part of the beak kind of curves down a little bit. And then continue this inner part, so this curved line, this sort of webbed lines. So we have 4 points on this. And then this part curves up for the head. I'm just very loosely outlining my drawing. So I'm just going to continue to take this line inwards and all the way down, and it's just going to kind of disappear into that green area. If you want to, you can make that line go all the way to the bottom edge of the canvas, but because it's going to be kind of covered by grass later, we don't really have to make it go all the way to the bottom edge. So now we have our basic duck drawing all sketched out, and let's start painting him in. I'm going to start with the beak, and let's load our palette with Cadmium Orange Hue, some titanium white, and we'll be using some of that yellow as well. I'm not going to rinse my brush. I'm going to grab some of this white and grab some of this yellow, mix it together, and it's going to make this kind of like light yellowish orange color. I'm going to start at the top and this is still the number 4 round brush. Just going to kind of loosely paint the inner part of the beak. Take a little bit of white and kind of blend that here towards the bottom, and just kind of blending that with the orange. Slow kind of curved strokes that go in the direction of the shape. A little bit of orange, and I'm just using this white/orange combination with that little bit of yellow that was still on my brush, just to kind of let it blend together on the canvas, outline, fill it in. Let's make the bottom of the beak just a little bit darker. So I'm going to grab orange on my brush without that white, and I'm just going to do mostly of this orange right here on the bottom. There is going to be some kind of division line with the beak, but right now we don't really have that defined, and that's okay. So there's a division of the top and the bottom of the beak. So we're going to add a little bit of white towards the top, because the top part of our beak is lighter and the bottom part is going to be darker. So I'm just blending a little bit more white in here at the top. So we have lighter orange at the top, dark orange, and we kind of have a division line already going where that dark is and where that light divides the dark. But we can define that more later. A little bit more orange at the bottom. So we have the division of light and dark with our beak. And let's start filling our bird in. So without rinsing the brush, let's load it in yellow and white. So there's gonna be a little orange on your brush still. If it's too much orange, go ahead and rinse the brush off and start over, but you want to start with yellow and white double loaded on your brush. This is because the white will give our yellow some really nice coverage. The white will mix with the yellow on the canvas and make it look really bright, because we have kind of a medium background that we need to cover. And so let's start on the head area. I'm going to start just above the beak. I'm going to do this very slowly. I'm going to go in the direction of the shapes. I'm taking this yellow and white are blending, and we go around our head and get as close as possible to that yellow outline that I created, and around our beak. But it's okay that some of that outline is still visible. It'll be kind of dark. We can get as close as possible to it without having to completely make it disappear. Just very slowly start to blend our yellow and white together. So I'm going to take this, go around our beak, short kind of curvy strokes, go around the neck. So basically just kind of doing the outer parts and then working my way inwards. loaded a little bit more white on my brush, and right here, outlining this part of the beak. So these are like, I call them contouring strokes. It just means that we're going in the direction of the shape that we're filling in. So to give our duck a little bit more form, we're making our paint strokes curve in the direction. So right here, they're curving like this. We're going to go around our eye. So as I'm reloading, I'm grabbing little bits so that yellow and white is kind of mixed on my canvas over there, or on my palette. It's yellow and white. That's what I'm loading my brush in, kind of equal parts yellow and white here. I'm going to go around the eye, very small paint strokes around our eye. So I'm just going to continue to get these little yellow paint strokes as close as possible to that original chalk drawing of the eye without losing that shape. So I don't want to lose that original sort of eye teardrop shape. I have more yellow on and white on my brush. I'm going to quickly kind of do these paint strokes that are going in this curved direction. And I grabbed more of just the yellow that time around. So we want to kind of create some variation in this. So sometimes I'm going to load my brush in yellow and white, so it's going to show up light. And sometimes I'm going to load it in just the yellow, and it's going to show up kind of dark. So in this sort of area that's under the eye to the left of the beak, in this neck area, we want that to be a little bit darker. So to do darker, we'll just do yellow with no white. And you can see how that will show up kind of darker without adding that white in there. So you have a little bit of a shadowy area in the neck area and just under the eye to the left of the beak. And then the body is yellow and white. So down here, we'll do yellow and white. So right here, yellow, white, and we can kind of blend that in without losing that shadowy area that we created. And so for the rest of the body, it's pretty easy. I'm just doing these large paint strokes, kind of stroking in a downward direction. You can kind of create the texture of duck feathers by doing that. Large, curvy paint strokes, a little bit of water to kind of get this to flow better. It's kind of a large area, so for this number 4 round brush, it's not that large of a brush. So if you feel like you need a bigger brush to kind of get this to be painted, you can switch to a bigger brush. You can use that 8 round brush, which is a longer, bigger bristles, or you could even use like a flat brush to fill this in. So this is all yellow and white, and then I'm changing the direction of my strokes to kind of go in the direction of the shape. So in the center, our paint strokes are going very vertical, but then they switch to go in a curved direction towards the right and then an opposite curved direction towards the left. So you're really just going in the direction of the shape. That really helps to give your duck some form. And by kind of altering this yellow and white, I'm already creating some of this duck feather texture by just kind of letting yellow and white blend together gently to create different streaks of that color. So we will go back and add some optional, more detailed duck feather in a later step. But for now, we're just kind of focusing on getting this filled in. So I don't need to let this go all the way to the bottom of the canvas. A lot of that's going to be covered at the bottom by grass. But if you feel more comfortable letting this go all the way down, so like right down here, I did not bring my yellow all the way down. I just kind of let it fade off and sort of disappear. Can get some of this white. I can blend a little bit more. You can see how it's creating that texture just from our yellow and white not blending all together. I don't want to lose my shadow part, so I'm not going to go and add white into that shadow part. Maybe right here, I can say maybe that could be lighter. Maybe if I liked it darker, I can go back and add darker in that area. But for now, there's our first layer of our duck. I'm going to take some orange and kind of touch up this right here. I'm just going to kind of take this orange and kind of outline the edge of this beak. So this part is outlined with the orange, and this down here, I'm going to go back and add another layer of this dark orange. So we have that division part, the bottom part of the beak is dark, top part is light. So that helped to kind of define it a little bit better. Let's paint the eye next, and we need the color Burnt Sienna on our palette, which is kind of like a reddish brown color. And we will need Mars Black, and you'll need some titanium white. So if you have fresh titanium white on your palette that's not mixed with any yellow, otherwise load a little bit of white, fresh white on your palette. Let's take our number 4 round brush and rinse that all off. And I'm gonna make a dark brown by mixing about 3 parts brown to 1 part black and 1 part white. That is going to make our brown kind of more of a neutral, lightish brown. I'm going to water it down just slightly, but I don't want it to be dripping, especially in this area where it's a small detail. So first thing I'm going to do, this is the number 4 round brush with this brown color I just made on my palette. I am going to, you can twist the brush to really get in there and let that be a very detailed, for detail work, we can get that paint right there on the tip of the bristles. And I'm just going to paint that eye solid brown. I'm not worried about highlighting or where the black part of the eye is. I just want to get that shape defined, and I'm doing that just with this brown. So if I have to paint over part of the yellow, that's okay. I can always go back and retouch up the yellow outline around the eye. I really want to focus on the shape. So it's like curved sort of teardrop shape. Like a little walnut. This part down here curves down just slightly. So there's my shape. And next I want to use this same color to paint the nostrils of the duck, so on the beak. So there's like a little triangular shape in the upper sort of left area of the beak. So I'm twisting my brush again because I know I'm going to do something very detailed here. I'm going to get that paint right there on the end of the bristles, and then I'm going to paint like a little triangle shape that's going to be about right here in the center part at the top of the beak. Little abstract sort of triangle shape for his nostril. And then we can use this color to do our division line. So like I'm going to just kind of loosely outline under here, teeny tiny bit of brown so that it's a little pop of dark right there at the bottom. That'll help with my division of the top part of the beak and bottom part of the beak. So next I'm going to show you how you can add a little bit of texture to your duck if you want to give him that kind of fluffy feathered look. This is optional, and I promise I won't go too crazy with the texture, but if you want to kind of watch what I'm doing, decide, maybe I don't like that, you can skip this step, or if you love how that looks, you can do it with me. So I am going to mix a lighter yellow. So white and yellow mixed together, but a little bit more white, so it's kind of a lighter yellow so that it will show up. Using the number 4 round brush, I'm going to start above the beak, and I'm just going to do these little kind of diagonal texture lines that are kind of hanging outside the lines of what I originally drew. So just kind of going with the shape, but then kind of hanging out, going outside of the lines. So I'm just kind of dragging that color outwards. It gives him a little bit of that fluffy duckling look. So our feathers are sticking out kind of slightly, but they're still very close to the shape of the duck and very close, not sticking out too much. They're still going in the direction of that shape, if that makes sense. And then I can continue to do some of these texture lines. So can kind of make it look like some kind of like mohawk going on. Little texture lines around going in the direction of the shape. A few of them sticking out. So here in this dark area, we can kind of have fun with this by adding some of those lighter kind of feather strokes in there because they'll stand out against that darker background, but we don't want to make it so they kind of take over because we still want that kind of dark shadowy area, but the light will show up against the dark better. So I'm just going to go in maybe with a little bit more white and see how that shows up against some of that dark yellow. Just dragging some curvy paint strokes over here on the body of the duck. And so we has a little bit of this feathered, fluffy look. And I can take this a step further and do some darker. So I'm going to take this brown and add a little bit of white to this. So I'm going to do a few sort of like darker feathers in here, but again, I'm not going to go too crazy with it. It also helps that I added a little bit of water to this, so it's kind of loose. So just a few little tiny feather strokes starting above the beak, and a few that are, we want to make sure we are going in the correct direction. So these are going curving around the eye. These are curving under the eye. And then we can do a few of these dark feathers kind of sparingly throughout, although I don't want to do too much of this brown. I don't want to take away from the pretty bright yellow duck. So just a few. And again, if you decide, oh, I don't like that, you don't have to do the brown feathers. If you want to just do a few light colored feathers, you can just do a few light colored feathers, whatever you're most comfortable with. I'm going to finish the eye, so let's make sure the brown part is dry, and let's just use solid Mars black for this. We're going to paint a small circle at the top center part of that eye. So that is solid black circle right in the center, and it's hugging the very top of his almond-shaped eye. So there's black. You'll want to let this dry a little bit before going in and doing the white. So go ahead and rinse all that black off of your round brush, and let's go back and re-outline the yellow part that's going around the eye. So let's load our brush in just the yellow, Cadmium Yellow Medium Hue. And I want to get as close as possible without smudging anything I just painted. But I'm outlining the eye with yellow, going around that shape. You may find that this step is not even necessary because you already painted it and it's already as close as possible. There's no blue background showing through, but just that little bit of yellow outline really helps to kind of give it that sort of realistic look in his eye. So when the black part is dry or mostly dry, I know I always get impatient when I want to do highlights. But that black, if it's too wet, this is going to smudge. So let that dry a little bit and then rinse the brush, load the tip of the brush in titanium white. We're going to do the highlight in his eye. So I'm going to do a large, but not larger than the black circle, a very large white dot right there at the top. Just one dot is all that is needed. And then I'm going to do a much smaller white dot. I'm going to twist my brush. Little tiny dot right there. So a big dot in the center, and then going diagonally down, little tiny dot. And we have the little highlight in his eye that gives our duckling so much character. I'm going to do a highlight on the beak. So right here, a little kind of curvy white line curves right at the end of his beak. And then I'm going to go in and do some more feather lines. Also optional if you're completely satisfied with the way your duckling works, or you don't want to do anything else to the feather textures, you don't have to do this. I just grab some more yellow on my brush without rinsing that white off. Just going back, a few more feather lines. Again, going in the direction of the shape that the feathers are going is important. So we're going around the eye and then curved in the body area, depending on if it's on the right, the left, or in the middle. I'm going to show you how to create kind of more of a smile line on the duck's beak. And I'll show you what I mean by this. So I'm going to twist my brush. This is just black, brown, so dark color on the tip of the brush. I'm going to take this and just add a line right here. So that kind of extends that sort of division part of the beak that I already have, but doing just a little curved line, slightly going upwards, gives our little duckling a little happy grin. I'm going to rinse and, you guessed it, do a few more feathers on my duckling with my white and my yellow. Maybe some lighter ones going around the eyes. I don't want to get too much of that lighter color too close to the eye, so the part around the eye, the outline part, is still kind of dark yellow. And then maybe over here, this part lighter right here, but remember that shadow part that's to the left and under the eye area, I want to leave that part shadowy. So we're done with the duck, and we are going to move on to kind of part 2 of this tutorial, adding our grass and our flowers. And so you want to make sure your duck is dry for the most part. You don't want this grass to kind of smudge with any of the yellow towards the bottom. But on your palette, let's start by loading. So I have light green permanent. That's the color I loaded to my palette. And I'm using the number 8 round brush. So this is that bigger round brush that has the point to it. And let's add black. So adding a little bit of black to our green is going to make our green dark. So we want to start with a darker green and kind of work our way up to some lighter greens. So let's load this darker green in our number 8 round brush, and it helps to kind of add a little bit of water to that to kind of loosen it so it's not super thick. And let's try this. So with this brush, you can start at the end and then press firmly and stroke down. So that'll give you your kind of leaf grass blade, or you can start at the bottom and start out thick and then kind of stroke up and release the pressure of the brush, or you can do a combination of both of those. So because I'm doing grass, I like to just start at the bottom and just kind of like quickly drag my brush up, although you can do it the opposite way and start out thin and then stroke down. So whatever way you feel more comfortable. And we're just doing these dark color grass pieces around our ducklings. So there's going to be smaller pieces in the center and longer, taller pieces on the left and the right. That's because I didn't want longer, taller pieces to cover up a lot of my ducks. So I want a lot of that bottom part of the duck we can still see through the grass, but we have the luxury of doing some longer, taller pieces on the left and the right because we have some blank spots on the left and the right. So I am adding lighter green in there. So sometimes I'll load my brush in the light green color, sometimes the dark. So we have a nice combination of dark and light, and we're just gradually adding more and more grass blades around our duck. When we go and paint these individual flowers like the tulips, we will add our own stems for those. But for now, this is the grass. And let's rinse. And let's do our tulip, our first tulip. So I'm going to load my palette with the color Primary Red. And I'll be using the number 4 round brush for this. So I'm switching back to that smaller round brush, and I'll need titanium white. So let's load our number 4 round brush in just the Primary Red, which looks like a very dark pink, by the way. And let's paint a simple little teardrop shape. It's kind of angling towards the left. And then without rinsing the brush, load it in some titanium white and paint a second sort of teardrop shape that's overlapping our first one. This turned out to be a lighter pink color. And load your brush in white again and do a third teardrop shape that's overlapping all three of them. So we have this very basic sort of tulip shape of three petals that are overlapping, three visible petals that are overlapping. And then sometimes I like to take that color, so this is just that primary red, just blending it at the bottom of this left petal. So I'm going to repeat that to make 3 tulips in this, although you can paint more tulips and bigger tulips if you want. So another teardrop shape. And then this one, it's actually going to curve out a little bit more. So this one's going to be kind of more of an opened tulip. And then titanium white. I'm actually going to do this lighter one right in the center of these 2 darker ones. So I'm going to do this teardrop shape going up, and it's overlapping both of those back petals. And I can go back and maybe add a little bit of light color to the side of both of those petals, but I don't want it all to kind of mush and be the same color. I could even add a little bit of dark on the bottom of this one. I am going to do another tulip on the left, but I'm going to add some orange to it just to kind of make it look a little different. So without rinsing my brush, I'm going to grab some of my Cadmium Orange Hue color. So it's going to be kind of like a pinkish orange color. And same thing, I'm going to start by painting the back petal first. It's our little teardrop shape. So this is our dark color. And then we grab our white without rinsing, and we let this white mix with our orange, and we do another teardrop shape that's overlapping. And then our third visible petal is going opposite direction, overlapping the other 2. And I can go back and add more color to this if I want. I can grab a little bit more orange and just kind of blend that color without smudging my wet paint on the duck. And just kind of blending it up. So then we can do the stems of our tulips. So tulip stems have this like really pretty bright yellowish green color. So we're going to try to make that color on our palette. So we're going to take this green. I'm going to mix yellow into it. You can kind of loosen it up with a little bit of water if that helps, but it should not be drippy. And let's do the stems of our tulips. So I am going to start just under the flower, and it's just going to kind of open just slightly. It's going to kind of trumpet out just a little bit and then go thin, and then kind of a consistent line all the way down. I'm going to do the leaf. So with the leaf, I like to kind of do what I did with the grass. So start out thin, press down, and you'll get your thicker stroke. So if you want to switch back to the number 8 round because of the point of the brush, you can do that for the leaves. I am keeping these flowers very simplistic. I don't want to go into a lot of details. If you want to render them further and go into more detail with the flowers, you're welcome to. But I kind of kept them simplified just because they're not really the focus of the painting. All the details really focused on the duckling. And so same thing with this one. So it kind of opens up to kind of hug the bottom part of the tulip, and then it goes thin. I'm going to make this one go around the duckling. So we still see the stem, but it's kind of twisting to the left of him because I didn't want to cover. We're just going to kind of assume that these tulips are in the background behind the duck. And those go all the way down and just kind of disappear in the grass. I am going to do a second or another tulip leaf, but I'm going to use the number 8 round brush for this to do kind of a bigger leaf and another leaf that's kind of bending. So this brush is kind of easier to do that with. So this is the number 8 round brush, and then I'm going to start out by using just the tip of the brush lightly and then press down on the bristles, and then you get your thicker leaf shape. I'm going to mix some titanium white into the green. I'm going to make this one bend. So let's start out lightly, press, and have it turn so it's bending. Next, I'm going to do purple flowers. I'm going to load my palette with Dioxazine Purple. This is the only time this color shows up in this painting. I'm going to rinse, and I'm going to be using number 4 round for this. And I need purple and white. So these are going to just be kind of like a lavender style flower. They could be hyacinths. So we are starting with the purple and then doing little kind of dots, and these are going in kind of a vertical column, but also using that titanium white to blend with the purple. So when the purple and white blend, it creates a really pretty lavender color. So you just want a nice kind of combination of purple and white. They gently blend together, and just little columns of bundles of little paint strokes that kind of go to a point at the top and get a little bit wider towards the bottom. So again, keeping it very simple, sort of abstract, not super detailed with these flowers. And we can do one way up here to kind of vary the heights of these flowers to create some interesting composition where not everything is the same height. So these are just little dots. I did another set of purple hyacinth on the left between the 2 tulips. And we can go and add stems for these, or we can just assume maybe the grass pieces that we painted are part of the stems. This one right here, I felt needed a stem because it was high enough, so I just did dark green. The other one over here on the right got a stem, but the one on the far right, not really. We can just assume the grass is kind of attached to it. We're going to do daisies, but we want to just make sure everything on the bottom is dry when we paint these daisies. We don't want it to mix with that color. So I'm going to start with the brown and the black, and I'm going to paint the centers of the daisies first. So this is a number 4 round brush, and I'm going to do 4 daisies. You can do more, you can do less. Some of these daisies are a circle in the center. Some are an oval. So the oval ones are going to be daisies that are kind of tilted, like on the side, angled differently. The full circle is we're going to see all the petals going around in that full circle. So this gives your painting a little bit of variety when you do a variety of different angles for the daisies. And they're all pretty low in the painting. They're not going very high. So after you do your centers, then you want to load your paint palette with some fresh titanium white. And again, make sure everything around these petals is dry so that nothing is smudging. Take your number 4 round brush, load that in the white, and start painting your petals. So for the daisies that are on the side, so I like to start with the petals that are under the little kind of half circle shape that we painted. And these ones are just kind of, they're curved they start out curved and they end kind of curved, or I'm just kind of dragging my brush outwards. So those petals are larger, but then when we start painting the petals in the back, those ones are smaller because those ones are kind of going behind and we don't see the full petal because this daisy is kind of angled on its side. So this one actually ended up dragging some of that purple in. That's okay, because when it dries, we can go back with a second coat and cover that up, or we can just be okay with a little bit of purple showing up on the petals. So again, the petals under that elliptical shape are larger and angling down. The ones in the back are smaller. So this one is a circle. So this time I'm going to do petals that go all the way around that circle. So we want it to be curved at the bottom, kind of curved on the end, or you can just kind of drag your brush outwards. So all of those petals are pretty much the same size and length. This one is a side daisy, so this time I'm going to do what I did with the first one, longer petals on the bottom, and see how like the direction of the petals kind of change as I go around the daisy. Back here, our petals are smaller because assuming they're kind of bending backwards and we don't see the full petal. And then this one also is on its side, but also very much on the bottom of the canvas. So my petals are really just kind of all going off the edge. We don't really see the full amount of petals on that one. So then let's add some yellow texture on top of our dark texture, our dark centers for the daisies, that is. So I'm going to load my palette with the color Cadmium Yellow. Take my 4-round brush and I'm going to stipple this brush. That just means I'm going to dot the tip of the brush. I'm going to paint little yellow dots. And I don't want to cover up all of the brown. I'm just adding this yellow layer on top and dotting it. Taking this, little yellow dots. So I can go outside of that shape a little bit. That helps to create texture. And this guy, little yellow dots. If I want, I can go back with some white and kind of highlight some of those. But again, I don't really need to make these super realistic, but adding that little bit of white to some of those kind of helps. So the final thing I'm going to do is go back and add a second coat to these petals, especially right here with that purple just kind of smudged a little bit, but making sure these petals are nice and bright and white. It's the last detail step I'm going to do for this painting. And that is it. If you also wanted to add something like up here, a bee or a butterfly to kind of fill that area in, you can. But that's the conclusion of how to paint spring duckling. Hope you enjoyed this one. Thanks for watching and thanks for painting with me.